The old newspaper model is dying.
It's this kind of collision of two worlds, and this new world that just kind of wants to crack it all open.
So this is about WikiLeaks, which is a website. They didn't have to drop this off on the front step of NBC News or the New York Times. They just dropped it off on YouTube and waited for everybody else to find it.
The bottom line is, WikiLeaks doesn't need us. In the immediate moment, we're in the middle of cutting 100 people out of a staff.
How scared are you right now?
I've been a single parent on welfare. This is nothing.
I almost feel like I don't have a clear grasp on the enormity of the situation.
Could the New York Times go out of business?
Everybody's talking about how newspapers are in danger now. Newspapers going to cease to exist.
They're an endangered species, right?
Yeah, endangered is what they say.
Yeah.
Print media is going the way, as you say, of the dinosaur. And I'm thinking that can't happen because what a bum's going to have to cover themselves up when they're sleeping on benches and everything.
Other bums.
Body heat. No, they've been covering themselves up with old iPads and laptops.
The New York Times, Wall Street Journal, they might be hurting. But the green sheet is eternal.
Oh, that's true.
Not going away.
Thrifty nickel back
Now
in
that's useful, yeah.
No, actually, that shit is way going out the way because those things were used to sell items now, and now we have eBay and Craigslist and all kind of little smaller versions of those. Yeah. So
I do get worried though. I'm always wondering what the hell Bat Boy's up to. So Weekly
World News has been dead for years now. It's been online only for 5-6 years.
Well, then what the fuck has that kid been selling me all this time? So you just changing the dates on those things? What the hell?
Let me see this. That's crayon, man.
Damn it. Well,
the page one inside the New York Times, it addresses such questions as what's going to happen to legacy media, stuff that's been old now, print, even things like radio, television, all that stuff is they're losing their foothold in the age of the internet. As we can see in declining sales, more ad sections in newspapers now.
Yeah. Newspapers closing down all over the place. Major newspapers closing down.
New York Times is a pinnacle newspaper. It is a giant in the industry, and they've seen their stock and sales plummet steeply over the years. Yeah. And
I sure as hell don't read that shit.
I read it, but I read it online.
I read it online. I was going to say, yeah.
And now that, this movie even addresses things like, maybe people should be making that transition from print to some sort of digital form, but everybody's desperate. Nobody knows what to do. And again, we're talking about the New York Times, and we see everybody just running around saying, okay, we have to make a decision now.
Yeah, I think the only people who are really worried are the ones who are working that fucking printer press, because besides that, you think, even if they do just go to the internet, they still need writers. They still need people to report the news. So those guys will be fine.
The problem is how to monetize it is the real issue, because that's where it's coming into it, because as people on the internet don't like paying for content. Personally, I'm baffled how there are any pay porn sites existing, but there's a lot of them. So apparently some people do. With newspapers, though, they've had a real problem with this. Other people who have tried the whole, your paid online subscription have been less than successful. So the New York Times finds himself in a position look, we have to come to terms with the fact that while the newspaper as a printed form may not be completely dead, it's certainly not what it was and not a reliable source of income anymore. So how do we take the model of the internet and make it viable?
Well, isn't that what advertising's for? Can't they fucking run an ad for Jonah Hex or something like we do?
Yeah,
we're making tons of money off that.
Yeah, man, we made shit. We just working because we like to. With that Jonah Hex money, we can just retire off of that for the rest of the year.
As a matter of fact, I was going to say, Dylan Dog's going to make our nut for the next.
Oh man, Jesus! Don't even get me started on Dylan Dog. That saved our life, man. That's our bonus right there.
You don't have to.
We even ran that shit a month early.
Australia and report on what's happening and things there is the thing. They have big costs involved there with sending these guys who gotta make a living.
Yeah. But it's funny because you can hear them actually say things. You can see the gears in their head, which pretty much squeak out, let's try this. Nobody knows what to do. And that's what, and one of the things they did in this movie is you saw the decision being made for the New York Times to actually go to a paid model. Cause I used to get the New York Times on my phone and it was free. And I just scroll through and read anything, that I would like. And now they've said
best worst dress list, is it stuff like that?
Funny.
You used to read
where's Garfield, man? I ain't seen that cat in here nowhere, but I'm hopeful, But you can read any article a la carte and it's fine. Now they said, well, you can read as many articles as you like, up to 20, whatever the number is.
Yeah, I think
and
it's like 5 or something
like that. Yeah, and then after that, we're going to charge you, and
Damn.
and you don't know if it's going to work or not. But one of the things that this movie did, and looking at not only the New York Times, and some people have called this movie sort of a little scattershot or scatterbrained because it doesn't focus just on the New York Times. And when it does focus on the New York Times, it focuses mainly on maybe like the big editors there, and one superstar columnist that they have, a guy
the
named
Keith
David.
Richards of newspaper.
Yeah, pretty much.
Guy used to be a crack addict living on the street, and one day, said, you know what? Fuck this. I'm gonna go write for the New York Times.
is that
Was he wrapped in a New York Times at the time?
Right. That's the idea.
Read his blanket and was like, "Hey, they got some good information."
See that's why this documentary makes sense. That fucking newspaper meant a whole lot more to him than it will ever to
there
any
you
of
go.
us. You know?
You know what? He was smoking the New York Times at the time when they got him.
The downside of this movie,
But the guy's name
that
is the guy's name is David Carr.
Yeah.
and he's, you follow him, and
Very famous journalist.
very famous journalist, and you actually get a sense of why print media is important. Maybe not so much going into the age of the internet.
This print saved my life.
Right here, yeah. But mainly,
I think it's very important.
But no, it is important. But mainly, is looking at the contributions that print has given and laid the groundwork that has laid for all these bloggers and aggregator sites to come about and run their business. If some of them you can even call a business. I'm sorry, what were you going to say?
Oh, I just said, like, I thought that one of the biggest problems of this movie is that he's one of the only interesting people in it.
Yeah.
Most of the other people in here are so bland. They're not fun to watch. And it's really the same 5 or 6 people over and over again. It's not going real far off of the 1 year. It's basically 1 year in the New York Times offices with total access to everything, watching as they're going through this, what the fuck are we going to do phase. And that guy is truly really funny to watch. He's got a great sense of humor. He's really entertaining. He does indeed sound and look kind of like Keith Richards.
Did you notice that they showed those pictures of him when he was young?
Yeah.
He looked like Jonah Hill.
Yeah.
And by the end of it, he did look like
It was
Keith
the
Richards. Yeah.
Before and after meth addiction pictures.
Oh yeah. That motherfucker's face got sucked into like some sort of fucking vortex in the middle of his head.
That's what happens when you touch those fucking newspapers all day. That ink fucks you up, man.
Take that, Jenny Craig. You can't beat meth.
Crack.
Right? But the other problem here I had with this was that it just, okay, so like they're going, but look at all the great things print media has done. You're like, right, it's very important in the history of civilization, but then they're not addressing what's so important that we keep it in the newspaper format now. And they don't even really discuss those issues. I mean, for instance, no one even brings up, well, it would actually be pretty good for the environment if we stopped printing all these newspapers.
Don't bring that up, Cyrus.
It never even comes up. And I'm just like, there's a lot of issues there that they aren't discussed when they bring in blogging people and they bring in people who are saying, look, you just need to figure out how to adjust this model for the internet. All they do is pretty much mock them. It's like the film doesn't ever really take the questions seriously. It's more just kind of sulking.
Did you think that?
That's what I got from
because
it.
one, I mean, the whole environmental thing, I can see why they would pass it up because it's not an argument as to why the New York Times should still exist. I mean, they actually went back and forth, making you kind of go, when you thought you had one side, you thought you were on the digital side, then all of a sudden it made you realize, like, well, this is why print is important. And then somebody would come up and say, well, print is kind of arrogant and you make mistakes too, and this is why you need us to like kind of keep you in check.
Right.
The bloggers and the internet people, that is. It's more about the information. The commodity of information and how this is going to be. I mean, really, that it is a commodity now. This movie just showed me that there are people out there scrambling about like the Road Warrior scenario with, all for a piece of what is going on right now, which is the resource of getting people's attention. They don't know how to do it. And the thing that I liked about this movie is just what I said. And you're right. I mean, it gets to a point where you look at this and it says, this is brought to you by the History Channel. And you say, well, this should be on the fucking History Channel.
Shit, it's more like it's brought to you by Steve Jobs. Are you kidding me? Because when they announce and then the iPad came along, they do everything but play the fanfare music at the end of Star Wars, really. Of like, yes, Apple, we're safe.
You say that, but
are you sure?
We don't know, but it is a good point that they brought up, and we could say like it is a commercial for the iPad, but the iPad does bring a very important element to this film because look, they went in and they they showed you like this guy David Carr. He goes around and he's talking to all these bloggers and people and on the internet and websites and whatnot. And there are people who are mocking him. There are people who think that they're edgy. There are people who think that, yeah, look, we're just going over there and reporting what we see. We don't have to be over there. We're the ones who are really bringing you the news. And this guy has to be like, look, just, I know I'm interviewing you guys, but just stop, because we are over there. For years, we've been over there with people not looking at stories like, why do people shit on the beach because their country is, or their city is so poor. We have people who are out almost getting shot. They're in the middle of a war, and for you to belittle us and for us to, pave the way for you to go over there and do that kind of thing, that's bullshit. All these people, because you have egos being bumped up from people who don't know what's going on, who are like, oh, CNN, we're going to get Vice Magazine. Why are we getting Vice Magazine? Because we just need a youth-oriented audience. We don't know why we have them. We just have them. And we see this going on, and we see within the scramble that really, the integrity is still with the newspapers. Everybody else is just like, oh, what demographic can we hit here? There's even a point where one guy came up being real cocky and was just like, I'm sorry, but the newspaper business is gone. All right, it serves no purpose now. And then this guy, David Carr, picks up a sheet of paper of this guy's website and says, you've been an aggregator site. If we took out this source here, this source here,
all the sources you're talking about,
you pretty much would have nothing. You take our information,
bitch.
So, but then they go and they cover like, what was the name of the woman who? She was kind of, they look at her as one of the journalists responsible for reporting bad information about that led to the Iraq invasion.
Oh, right. Yeah, she famously got in a lot of trouble writing for the New York Times and being the person sort of leading.
Judith Miller.
Yeah, leading the charge of saying that, no, they have WMDs over there. We know it.
Yeah.
And it was faulty information, and she didn't double check her sources.
Make a movie about that?
And everybody else kind of, several.
Yeah.
And then they go and they look at WikiLeaks and they say, listen, you guys, because you are a newspaper, you reported wrong, and everybody looked at you like you're some kind of leader, and you kind of helped usher in a war that was based on false information because of one person. Now in this age, we have people who are bringing out real truth, fact check. There doesn't need to be any real fact checking because this stuff is up the next day and people see what's happening right there. At the same time, that information could be edited too. So, it's just kind of like everybody's keeping each other in check, but everybody's kind of just running around, kind of frightened and scared.
I thought that was the most interesting part of the film, actually, was when they were bringing in WikiLeaks and Julian, what's his last name?
Assange?
Yeah. When they were Assange, that guy, the weird looking Anderson Cooper guy.
He looks like an albino in a way, doesn't he?
Yeah, it's Anderson Cooper with longer hair.
Yeah.
Because they're talking about like, wow, this is something that's never really happened before, and this is a benefit of the kind of web-based news information. But at the same time, now we are in a whole different moral world, and I wanted the whole movie kind of to start getting into that.
Yeah,
that is a fascinating story, but I felt like so much of it kept repeating the same shit over and over again.
See, now we're getting into the things that I usually tend to not like about documentaries, where they will repeat themselves.
Yeah, this really should have been.
I got it.
It could have lost easily 30 minutes from this because of stuff that, like, I get it. Let's move on, please.
Yeah.
It's just these people aren't that interesting to watch. But the film itself, it is a little scattershot because it'll be like, okay, we're going to talk about this for a while. Now we're going to move into this. And it feels kind of like just someone rambling more than like a planned out thing. Nothing feels circular.
As much as we want to flatter ourselves, it's still this very old school business. I'm the media editor. Trees are still cut and papers are still delivered.
I just think that helps us sort of be in the mix today. Yeah. Okay. Not to worry suggests the new media profits. The end of the New York Times wouldn't be that big of a deal, they say, because tweets, blogs, and news aggregators could create a new apparatus of accountability. Say again? But some stories are beyond the database. Sometimes people have to make the calls, hit the streets, and walk past the conventional wisdom.
This is the kind of shit that I see. I like this. I do. I like this a lot. This is a kind of I have been following this topic for a while, and I find it extremely interesting. But as much as I want to support this movie, I'm like, man, I should be at home with my shoes off, maybe lying on the couch naked, playing with my balls, and I should be watching this on PBS right now. I mean, an hour long,
wrapped in a newspaper.
It's something that
with a paper hat on.
It's something with a little bit more focus and a little bit more direction would definitely be worthy of a theatrical film. But you're right, it feels like television, and I'm like, okay, so why are we? I mean, I understand this is an important issue to a lot of people, but you still have to make a good movie around it.
You know what? It'll be a good movie once newspapers are completely gone. Because the thing is, it's still going on right now. The debate will always go on. There's always going to be different sides of who thinks what media is going to actually outlast what. But I mean, I can see it being so scatterbrained. I didn't even see the movie only because it's like, how do they really know? It's a bunch of people's different opinions, but there's no solid proof of what's, how well these newspapers, well, at least what people would do without them.
No, there is a definite path where things are going.
Yeah, the numbers don't lie. The money doesn't lie. The fact these newspapers are losing money doesn't lie. I mean, no, there's plenty of evidence as to where things are going. The question is, what are they going to do about it?
Yeah, well, you know what? I mean, to me, it sounds like to make this actually comprehensive, they should go back to the pterodactyls who used to chisel news in a stone tablet. Flintstones. Come on and go, wah. You don't make a living anymore.
I mean, do you guys think that this movie was pretty much made by people who are still trying to save the newspaper?
Well, I feel absolutely that way, and I felt like it was unbalanced in that direction, although not necessarily completely unfairly, but obviously nonetheless. And I still, I don't know, man. It just felt like you're defending a outdated business model that has a long and storied history, to be sure, but that doesn't, you don't keep something around forever just because it has a long and storied history.
I don't think it was a defense of the newspaper business. I think it was, somebody trying to say that this source is important. The New York Times is important, and maybe newspapers somewhat like it, but where do they go from here? Because like Cyrus was saying,
now that all the children are growing up,
and it's obvious, and that's why the iPad was important to introduce here, because the iPad and maybe devices like it are going to help us kind of organize how we get that information now, because it's going digital. For better, for worse, digital is a fragile fucking space. And it's a fragile. That information is very fragile. But you know what? Newspapers catch on fire too. So who cares? It's like it was just interesting to see. Just like I said, some of the biggest businesses, some of the smartest businesses that we see out there, just saying, I don't know what the fuck to do. They don't want to say it though. They want to seem smart. When we go to this paid model here,
From as people like the New York Times you trust, and you trust news comes from there, and even the movie goes, okay, there have been a couple occasions where we fucked up, but we also fired those fucking people and made a big public apology about it. I mean, it was front page news that
did you
we
see that woman?
up.
I hate to be. We're trying to do a smart review here. I've already talked about playing with my balls, so I'm just going to have to.
Is that what we're trying to do?
I know, yeah.
When did that start?
I didn't get that memo.
Yeah, exactly. No, but did you notice that woman who, because they have a bunch of people got laid off, and there's a woman with a receding hairline.
Yeah.
That was the craziest looking fucking thing. I just had to mention that.
Yeah, it happens. Alopecia can happen to anyone, man.
Jesus Christ. This woman almost looked like Curly from the Three Stooges.
The cost of working with newspapers.
Yeah, she had a Bigfoot head, man. It just caught my attention.
The question is, on the web, who do we trust? What are the sources that we trust? And I think ultimately the argument it makes that I do agree with is that, so what are we going to do to make sure that transition of a trusted name, like the New York Times, and the people who are associated with it and their level of quality, that we still have something like that we can go to? Because you can argue all you want, like, you can get your news all over the web, but how much of that do you know you can trust?
I trust Perez Hilton. That's me personally. I trust him.
And the Inquirer.
He goes to the source,
What's Bat Boy doing today? New York Times. Where's that story? No, you know what? You make an excellent point, man. Not you, the coach.
Oh, thank you. Oh,
shut up over there.
Damn
it. This is only audio. I'm talking about you. No, but you make an excellent point, because we do need to bring the integrity of these newspapers into the digital age, because all these bloggers that we have out there, we don't know how to trust them. At least that we get a feeling, even with the small little hiccups and faux pas that we have with these newspapers, they have their scandals too. But for the most part, I think there's some integrity there that just isn't found on the internet right now.
Well, hell yeah. I mean, if somebody on the internet reports something wrong, way wrong, who's going to fire him?
Yeah, and their reaction generally is, well, fuck you.
Come on. I mean, every jackass who can type with one hand and have their dick in the other, they can make a blog, and and they'll have people that'll go read it and really go, okay, this is this is truth right here.
Spill.com
And thank you very much for supporting us.
I mean, any news site or newspaper or whatever is always going to be slanted in opinion somewhat. I mean, like there's nothing you can do about it, but it's the effort to at least try to slant towards just the middle of just reporting the fucking news that is important. And the Times, although their op-eds are traditionally very left-leaning, the actual reporting of the news is not.
And
so
that's
much.
where we get caught. I mean, I think newspapers, for the most part, do have sort of, they have their feet held to the fire in some way or another. And I think that's why it's important to bring in this paid model. I mean, plus they have to survive. Information has never really been as free as we thought it should be.
Sure.
But that's the other thing. It's like, I'm still caught in the middle of, while we have these newspapers, there's still a slant there, and there's still this need to please advertisers. We don't want to scare them. So even though we're talking about the integrity of these newspapers, the internet still serves a purpose out there. They're the ones that, like, okay, maybe we're everywhere, maybe we don't have the best journalistic training or integrity that you do, but we will call you on your shit because we got nothing to lose, motherfucker.
I look forward to 12 years from now when we're all talking about how, the internet's dead. Digital. Nobody's doing that anymore. Man, we're going retro. We're going back to town criers. Hear ye, hear ye.
All it takes is one EMP, man.
Exactly.
Just one. We'll all be like carving into stone again.
Charlie Sheen still fucked up. Ding, 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 ding.
I'm more worried about where the fuck is Clark Kent going to work now? I was like, what the fuck
home.
is he going to do?
And it's cool.
We're really going to have to reboot that whole Superman
Clark
thing
Kent loves this, man. He's like, fuck, man, if I have to run and find a fucking phone booth, everybody got cell phones. They don't have those anyway. I could be at home naked and just throw my shit on and just ride away. This is good. It'd be funny if he actually just got a call and just forgot to put his shit on. He's just riding around with a cape and his balls flapping in the wind.
What is it with you and balls today? You and balls today. What is it? It's
balls out, baby.
He's like, where do you think my other hand has been this whole time?
Well, you know what? I'm glad to see that our journalistic integrity is in check right here today.
Hold on. Let me check. Yep.
Yes, there they are.
Yeah.
You know what?
You're not going to get this fucking reading the New York Times. I'll tell you that much.
And you know what? If I was working at the New York Times, I couldn't take a picture of my balls on my phone like this and put it out there for everybody to see.
That's true, and that's important news to some people.
That is important news.
That's a 2-page spread
right there. But man, going back to what we rate this, I as much as I like this is that movie. Now you're gonna look at the poster, and you're gonna have all these people saying this is an amazing, informative, and even sexy documentary, and it's like, look, this is a smart documentary. I granted that, okay, but let's not go too far. This is really no different from something that we would see like on Frontline on PBS, and I have to give it a rental because of that. I mean, it's a very good rental. It's an informative documentary, but I mean, it lacks a little bit of focus too, which is why I'm taking points off.
Yeah, you're not wrong at all. It is an important topic. It's a topic of our time right now. I just felt it's a topic that could have been covered much better than it is, in fact, covered by this film. It's not even mildly sexy. Did someone actually say that?
If you look at that poster, somebody said sexy.
Yeah, well, that's probably the New York Times review.
That's somebody jerking off that poster right there.
It's that guy trying to save the fucking newspaper. Sexy.
That guy jerks off and used the New York Times to wipe himself off. This is hot.
Got newsprint on his dick.
In Britain, on page 3, they've always got naked chicks. So come on, fuck it. Like, how many you want to save the newspaper?
I'm a good point there.
I'm just saying. I mean, we put pictures of Corey's balls up, and the numbers go through the roof.
There they go.
But you're right. This is a rental, pure and simple. It is. If you're really interested in the subject, which you probably should be, but you're not necessarily, then by all means check it out. But there's no need to rush out to the theater. And I have a feeling we'll be seeing a lot more stuff about this in the near future.
Yeah, it's the kind of movie that we give just to give a rating. I'm giving a rental, but I mean, really, if you that egghead that wants to like, I mean, you know
what some kind of commie, liberal, faggot, intellectual, then fine.
Educated, academia nuts.
Because honestly, like this is a documentary that I would like to see, but with your rating, it's like I'd still be confused as I am right now about the situation and what it holds for the people involved. Honestly, I'm more fascinated with what's going to happen with comic books than I am with newspapers, because that's actually something I actually read. So,
they're gone. I was saying, like, if you take a date over to the Violet Crown, you got that.
You probably want to see Midnight in Paris.
You would. But if you want to, like, ignorant brother like me, I'm trying to make my date seem like I'm smart. I go there and take there's dinner in there, there's food, and then you take her to see a smart movie like this. And then
and then your date opens up her phone and starts making a call right in the middle. Yeah, girl, he took me to this bougie movie.
Right. Yeah.
What the hell, girl? I paid. I can talk in here. You don't tell me what's wrong with your lips. There's gonna be something wrong with your lips. You don't turn around.
Leon, we haven't gotten our check from the Violet Crown yet. Shut up.
That girl's gonna whisper over you. Hey, I gotta go take a shit, and you're never gonna see her again.
What's this? Hummus? Hummus? What the? Where's some pizza in here? Where's some ribs?
Good looking. I guess he all right for a corny nigga.
News is not dying.
The Times still, I think to a remarkable degree, does set the agenda.
The New York Times has dozens of bureaus all over the world, and we're going to toss that out and kick back and see what Facebook turns up. I don't think so.